The silence you ignore today becomes the truth you can't outrun tomorrow. My friends, let me start with something simple but heavy. Give it time. Because the same silence they brushed off like it was nothing, the same quiet they thought made them powerful, the same stillness they assumed meant you were weak. One day, that silence becomes the hammer that cracks their ego. That's the part nobody warns you about. The quiet doesn't just sit there, it works behind the scenes, reshaping everything they thought they understood. And trust me, folks, when silence starts speaking, it speaks louder than any argument you ever held in. Before we go deeper, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Stay with me because what I'm about to tell you might change the way you see every silent moment you've ever lived through. Hey folks, imagine this. You're holding a snow globe in your hand. You shake it. Everything inside becomes a storm. Confusion, noise, chaos. That storm is the relationship, the drama, the arguments, the begging, the explaining, the trying to be understood. But then you set the snow globe down. You stop shaking. You step back. And suddenly the storm settles. And when the flakes fall and everything becomes still, you finally see what was always inside. That's what silence does. It stops the shaking. It reveals what was always there. And some people, my friends, they cannot handle what your silence reveals about them. People love noise because noise hides truth. They love distractions because distractions hide feelings. They love chaos because chaos makes them feel in control. But silence is the one thing the ego can't negotiate with. Like Marcus Aurelius once said, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, and when you go silent, they're left alone with the thoughts they've been running from. Suddenly, your absence becomes a mirror they can't escape, a mirror that keeps asking the question they never prepared for. Did I lose something I'll never get back? And listen, my friends, here's the lie the world teaches you. If they're silent, it means they don't care. Wrong. That's one of the biggest myths we swallow. Silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes silence is a storm pretending to be calm. Sometimes silence is someone replaying everything they dismissed. Sometimes silence is the universe rearranging their life to show them what they took for granted. Give it time. The truth always surfaces in stillness. Let me add a little humor here. Have you ever ignored something thinking it would magically disappear, like that laundry pile you pretend isn't growing, or that message you accidentally opened but promised yourself you'd get back to later? Yeah, silence works the same way. You think you're in control until suddenly you're buried under the very thing you avoided. That's exactly what happens to the person who ignored you. Silence doesn't disappear. It collects interest. The beauty of stillness is that it doesn't chase, it doesn't argue, it doesn't explain. It simply reveals. It reveals your strength. It reveals their weakness. It reveals the truth they didn't want to face. And my friends, when that truth arrives, it doesn't knock. It walks straight in with muddy shoes and sits on their favorite couch. So as we begin this journey together, remember this: silence is not the end of your story. It's the moment your power finally takes the lead. You don't rise with noise. You rise with clarity. You rise with boundaries. You rise with peace. That's your real transformation. Your affirmation for today is, I rise in silence. Write it in the comments so your mind remembers what your heart already knows. And stay with me. The truth gets deeper from here. Number 1. The moment silence turns into a mirror. They can't escape. the loudest truth in life is the one you hear when the world finally goes quiet. My friends, let's hit this point hard, because this is where everything truly begins. There comes a moment, simple, quiet, nothing dramatic, when the silence they once ignored suddenly becomes a mirror they can't run from. A mirror they never asked for, a mirror they never wanted, but a mirror that shows them exactly who they are without your presence softening the edges. And folks, that moment hits deeper than any goodbye you ever gave. Picture this, my friends. Imagine standing in front of a lake early in the morning. The water is perfectly still. No ripples, no movement, just an untouched surface reflecting everything above it. That reflection, that's what your silence becomes. They look at it thinking they'll see the same scenery, the same control, the same confidence, the same inflated ego. But instead, they see the truth. They see the flaws they hid behind excuses. They see the choices they pretended didn't matter. They see the consequences they thought they'd never have to face. Silence doesn't distort. Silence doesn't edit. Silence shows everything exactly as it is. And that scares them, because real reflection requires real honesty. They start asking questions, quietly, privately, questions they'll never say out loud. Did I push too far? Were they really the one holding me together? Why does it feel different without them? Why does the silence feel heavier than the arguments ever did? These questions aren't your fault. They're the natural outcome of a truth they avoided for too long. And this is where it gets interesting, my friends. You want to know why silence becomes so powerful for you and so terrifying for them. Because silence is the first time their ego gets out of the way. All the noise, all the pretending, all the fake strength they kept performing. Suddenly, none of that works anymore. Silence is like turning off the power to a noisy factory. Everything stops. Everything is exposed. And here's the lie most people carry, the one society feeds them. If you don't talk about it, it doesn't exist. That's nonsense. Silence doesn't erase truth. It magnifies it. Silence is honesty in its purest form. Think of it like this. Ignore a bill long enough, and what happens? It grows. Ignore a wound, and it infects. Ignore a truth, and it returns stronger, louder, and far harder to face. That's exactly what your silence does. They thought ignoring you meant they won. They thought your quiet meant they had control. But silence has a strange way of showing who actually held the power all along. And let me tell you something raw. People who fear silence are usually afraid of themselves. They don't want to sit alone with their thoughts. They don't want to confront the guilt, the regrets, the unspoken things. So they distract themselves. More noise, more people, more scrolling, more pretending. But the thing about silence is this. It doesn't chase. It waits. It follows. It creeps through the cracks. And eventually, it finds them. My friends, at first, they'll fight it. They'll tell themselves they're fine. They'll laugh louder. They'll post more. They'll look happy. They'll convince people they're living their best life. But deep down, silence is tapping on the door they hoped would remain shut. And every night, when the world dims and their phone stops buzzing, that tapping becomes louder. This is where their fear begins, not fear of losing you, fear of facing themselves, because you were the safe place where they could pretend their insecurities didn't exist. They used you like a soft light that hid their shadows. But when you step back, those shadows stretch across every part of their life. Have you ever noticed how a person starts acting different after you go quiet? They fidget more. They check their phone, even when there's no reason. They reread old messages. They think about things they dismissed. That's not confusion. That's reflection. Silence is doing its work. And listen, folks, it's not easy for you either. You're thinking, why don't they see what they lost? Why do they act like nothing happened? Why does it look like they're thriving while I'm healing? These thoughts are normal. Even strong hearts shake when they begin choosing themselves. But know this, just because you can't see their collapse doesn't mean it's not happening. Pain doesn't always make noise. Sometimes it hides behind the smile they force. You're rising, they're unraveling. It just doesn't happen in the same timeline. Why is it difficult? Because silence demands patience. Silence demands trust. Silence demands believing in your worth without needing them to confirm it. And that, my friends, is uncomfortable. But every time you hold your silence, you're telling the world, I respect myself more than I fear being alone. That's real power. The world might not clap for you, but your soul will. And why do they crumble? Because they thought the game was yours to lose. They never imagined it was theirs. They thought detachment meant you no longer cared. But true detachment means you care about yourself more. And that is the lesson your silence delivers directly to their ego. Now, stay with me, folks, because this is where your story begins to turn. Silence is no longer your weakness. It becomes your boundary, your clarity, your rebirth, and their mirror, the one they can't escape. So let me leave you with this affirmation. I choose powerful silence. Write it in the comments, show yourself you mean it, and let the world around you feel the strength you're stepping into. And trust me, what comes next will open your eyes even more. Number 2, why time is the enemy of their ego. Time exposes what ego works hardest to hide. My friends, let's ease into this one like stepping into a cold lake at sunrise, slow, steady, but guaranteed to wake every part of you up. Time is the enemy of their ego because ego needs immediacy to survive. Ego thrives on reactions, on quick wins, on instant reassurance. But time does not operate on their ego's schedule. Time is patient, neutral, and brutally honest. It isn't comforting, it doesn't negotiate, it simply reveals. When the noise settles and the distractions lose their shine, time pulls back the curtains and shows them the truth they weren't prepared to see. Losing you didn't free them, it exposed them. Imagine this with me, folks. Someone builds a sandcastle right at the shoreline. They admire it, brag about it, show it off as if it's invincible. That sandcastle is their ego, that little empire of pride, certainty, and I'm fine without them energy. But what they never consider is the tide. The water doesn't crash in with a dramatic wave or destroy everything at once. Instead, it creeps closer, inch by inch. At first, the tide doesn't look like a threat. It looks harmless, almost peaceful, just like time. But one day, without any warning, the water reaches the castle's foundation, and everything starts to sink. Not because of one big mistake, but because of every small moment they ignored. That is exactly how their ego collapses under the weight of time. In the beginning, they feel strong. They tell themselves they made the right decision. They walk around with that sudden confidence people get when they think they're winning something they don't understand. They convince their friends they've moved on. They distract themselves with noise, activities, and empty attention. They may even feel relieved. But my friends, ego can only run fast for so long. Time is a marathon, not a sprint. And by the time the second wind kicks in, it's already too late. Time has started doing what silence allows, revealing every truth they tried to outrun. Slowly, their certainty begins fading. That rehearsed line, "I'm good," starts feeling harder to say without blinking. Their justifications lose weight. Their confidence doesn't feel as solid. Something inside them starts to whisper questions they don't want to hear. Did they push too far? Did they underestimate you? Did they misjudge your silence? Time isn't making them curious. It's making them accountable. And ego hates accountability. Folks, here's the lie the world teaches. If someone looks fine right now, it means they are fine. That is one of the biggest illusions people fall for. Emotional consequences don't happen immediately. They land quietly, later, when the ego is tired and the distractions have settled. Give anyone enough time without comfort or validation, and their truth emerges whether they want it to or not. Time removes the bandage they slapped over their guilt. Time brings back memories they dismissed. Time reminds them of everything solid, steady, and grounding that they lost when they lost you. And why does it hit them so hard? Because people always assume they have more time with you, more time to play it cool, more time to come back, more time to fix things whenever they feel like it, more time to expect your patience. But one day becomes 1 week, and 1 week becomes 1 month, and suddenly time has closed the door they thought would always stay open. That's when panic begins, quiet panic, the kind only silence can expose. Meanwhile, time is rebuilding you in ways they never imagined. While it's eating away at the foundation of their ego, it's strengthening the foundation of your spirit. Time gives you distance, clarity, emotional control, and steady confidence. Time takes the pain that once felt overwhelming and turns it into wisdom. Time turns silence into strength. My friends, while they are unraveling, you are becoming. Here's the beautiful twist most people don't see coming. They weren't fine without you. They were fine at first. Anyone can pretend strength in the first chapter, but the truth isn't revealed at the beginning. It's revealed in the middle, when time starts tightening its grip around everything they ignored. Time exposes who acted out of pride and who acted out of peace. Time shows who was temporary and who was transformative. So if your mind ever tries to convince you that your silence means nothing, remember this: silence partnered with time speaks louder than anything you could ever say. Time is already doing the heavy lifting. Time is already planting regret in places they thought were safe. Time is already showing them the difference between someone who cared and someone they tried to replace. And time, my friends, always expose what ego tried to hide. Let me finish this section with something powerful. Your silence may feel quiet today, but their regret will echo tomorrow. Write this affirmation in the comments. Time is working for me. Show yourself. Show your strength. Show the world around you that you trust the process unfolding behind the scenes. And stay with me, because what comes next reveals the part they never wanted you to know. Number 3. Their pretend strength versus their private collapse. Not everything that looks strong is solid. Some things are just loud enough to hide their cracks. My friends, let's settle into this one, because it cuts deep and exposes a truth most people never admit. When your silence begins to stretch, when your presence no longer cushions their chaos, the first thing they do is perform strength. Not feel it, perform it. There is a difference, and time makes that difference impossible to hide. They step out into the world wearing confidence like a rented costume, hoping no one notices the threads coming loose. But here's what folks misunderstand. The louder the performance, the quieter the heart behind it. Imagine this with me. Picture a house at night with all the lights glowing brightly, warm light in every window, shadows dancing behind the curtains, laughter spilling out into the street. It looks full, alive, comforting. But step inside and you notice something strange. No one's actually home. The lights are on for show. The noise is just background filler. That's exactly how they behave after you go silent. They light up their world for appearances, not for truth. They post, they joke, they go out, they act unfazed. But it's all an empty house pretending to be lived in. And eventually, that emptiness starts echoing louder than the show they put on. At first, they believe their own performance. Ego fuels the script. I'm good. I'm better off. I'm moving on. My friends, ego is the best actor in the room until the curtains close. And that's what silence does. It closes the curtains on the show. It forces them off the stage and into the one place they hate being, alone with themselves. Here's the part they would never confess to you, but the truth always slips through the cracks. The collapse doesn't happen suddenly. It begins quietly, in private moments even they didn't expect. Like the moment they wake up and reach for their phone, not to message you, but because their mind wandered to you without permission. Or when they scroll and pause for a second too long on something that reminds them of you. Or when a memory surfaces, not chosen, not invited, but persistent, gentle, and deeply uncomfortable. That's when the performance begins to bend. Folks, people don't fall apart in public. They fall apart in the moments between distractions. They fall apart when the music stops, when the laughter fades, when the crowd goes home, when the high wears off. They fall apart when they close the door behind them and feel that quiet pressure in their chest that whispers, "Maybe I messed up." The world never sees that part. Only silence does. You might wonder, if they feel all this, why don't they show it? Because ego only knows two emotions, pride and panic. Showing vulnerability would mean admitting the truth. Showing regret would mean admitting they misjudged you. Showing softness would mean risking the very thing their ego was built to protect. So what do instead? They double down. They act even happier. They post even more. They laugh louder, talk bigger, stay busier. My friends, that's not strength. That's fear doing cardio. Let me break the lie the world tells you. If they look happy, they must be happy. That's one of the simplest but most damaging myths out there. Happiness is quiet. Peace is quiet. Clarity is quiet. You know what's loud? Distraction, avoidance, emotional denial. That kind of noise gets louder the more their internal truth gets heavier. And nothing weighs on a person heavier than the realization that they lost someone who actually cared. While you're healing in silence, they're unraveling in noise. While you're rebuilding your inner strength, they're trying to protect a fragile identity they've built out of temporary validation. While you're gaining clarity, they're losing control of the narrative they crafted for themselves. Your silence gives you room to rise. Their noise gives them a place to hide. But nobody hides forever, my friends. Sooner or later, the mask they've been wearing starts cracking. Picture someone patching a sinking boat with stickers. It might float for a little while. It might look okay from a distance. But sticker after sticker, distraction after distraction, nothing stops the water from rising. Their emotional boat is filling faster than they can pretend, and eventually, even they can't deny the truth. They're not thriving, they're drowning quietly beneath the surface. And why does this collapse hit them so hard? Because they thought losing you would be easy. They thought they could replace your presence with noise. They thought time would make them forget. But time doesn't erase what was real. Time exposes what was fake. Time does not heal the ego. It humbles it. And the moment your absence becomes the presence they feel most strongly, that's when the real downfall begins. Meanwhile, and here's the beautiful part, you're growing steadily without forcing anything. You're not performing. You're not trying to prove a point. You're not pretending to be okay. You're actually becoming okay. Your silence isn't an act. It's a transformation, and nothing terrifies a person performing strength more than watching someone else develop it naturally. Let me leave you with something powerful to carry forward. Their noise is temporary. Your silence is permanent growth. Write this affirmation in the comments, my friends. My silence strengthens me. Let it be a message to yourself, a message to the world around you, and a reminder that what comes next in this journey only gets more eye-opening. Stay with me. Things are about to reveal themselves in ways you never expected. Number 4. The psychological spiral, when they start feeling what you once felt. Life has a strange symmetry. The feelings you carried in silence eventually find their way back to the one who caused them. My friends, buckle in for this one, because this is where the story bends. This is where the emotional tables turn. This is where everything they once dismissed slowly starts visiting them, one quiet moment at a time. And let me tell you, nothing humbles a person faster than being forced to feel the very emotions they convinced themselves you were overreacting about. Time has a poetic way of circling back, and silence becomes the messenger that delivers every unspoken truth straight to their chest. At first, they believe they've escaped the weight. They think stepping away frees them from responsibility. They think distance clears them from guilt. They think ignoring you means the feelings disappear with the same speed they pushed you away. But emotions don't evaporate. They transfer. They transfer from the one who cared too much to the one who cared too little. From the one who tried to hold it together to the one who pulled away. And that transfer? It begins with silence. Imagine this, folks. Imagine you were juggling 10 heavy stones while trying to keep everything together. Your heart, your hope, your energy, your fears, your insecurities, your questions. Meanwhile, they walked around holding nothing but their pride. You struggled. They coasted. You carried the emotional weight. They carried the illusion of control. But once you step back, once you stop juggling, once you put those stones down, guess who ends up picking them up? Not because you handed them over, but because silence shifts the entire emotional balance. They start feeling the heaviness they once left in your hands, not all at once, but slowly, one stone at a time. And that, my friends, is when the spiral begins. It starts small, a random thought here, a quiet memory there, that little flicker of, I wonder how they're doing. Nothing dramatic, nothing life-changing, just a moment of awareness. But awareness grows. Awareness becomes curiosity. Curiosity becomes discomfort. Discomfort becomes restlessness, and restlessness becomes the emotional itch they can't scratch away. They check your profile, not because they miss you, that's what they tell themselves, but because silence created a question mark they can't erase. They scroll through old messages, not because they want you back, that's what their ego insists, but because the energy you once gave them doesn't exist anywhere else in their life. They replay the last conversation, not to judge it, but to understand what they missed. And here's the twist. They start searching for closure they denied you. Folks, this is where the ego starts sweating, because your silence makes them feel the same uncertainty they once forced onto you. The "what did I do wrong?" The "are they thinking of someone else?" The "why don't they care anymore?" Every question that kept you awake at night becomes the same question echoing in their mind. Life has a way of returning emotional lessons to the person who refused to learn them the first time. They begin noticing your absence like a missing note in a song they didn't realize they were attached to. It affects their mood. It affects their mornings. It affects their scrolling habits. It affects the way they look at their phone when it lights up, not for you, but in hopes of you. And all the while, they pretend nothing's happening. They pretend they're strong. They pretend they're above feeling anything. But silence doesn't need their permission to work. Silence speaks directly to the parts of them they cannot control. Let's break the lie right here. People don't miss you when you're around. They miss you when your absence interrupts their comfort. That's when their mind becomes the battlefield they never trained to fight in. They start imagining things, wondering about your life, worrying about losing their access to you. Their jealousy kicks in before their logic does. Their attachment shows up before their excuses can stop it. And deep down, they feel something unfamiliar: vulnerability. This spiral isn't chaos. It's clarity. It's life returning the emotional debt they left unpaid. And why does it happen so intensely? Because your silence removed their emotional shortcut. They can't soothe themselves with your attention anymore. They can't stabilize themselves with your support. They can't rely on your predictable presence. So now, every emotion comes raw, unfiltered, and loud enough to break through the walls they previously hid behind. Picture them walking through their day with you in the background of their thoughts, like a quiet soundtrack they didn't choose but can't turn off. They open a drawer and find something that reminds them of you. They laugh at a joke and suddenly remember your laugh. They hear a song and feel something shift inside their chest. They see someone wearing your favorite color and feel an ache they thought they were immune to. The mind doesn't forget emotional impact. Not with time, not with distance, not with pride. Folks, their spiral is not your responsibility. Their discomfort is not your burden. Their regret is not your invitation. Because while they are spiraling inward, you are expanding outward. While they are questioning their choices, you are understanding your worth. While they are replaying the past, you are building your future. Your silence is not punishment, it is perspective. And perspective is what forces them to feel what they once ignored. Let me end this section with something powerful. What once broke you is now breaking them in ways they never saw coming. Write this affirmation in the comments, my friends. I release what no longer serves me. Let it remind you that their spiral is not your story. Your rise is. And stay with me, because what comes next reveals the part of the journey where your transformation becomes undeniable. Number 5, your transformation, how silence builds you while it breaks them. The same silence that once felt like your prison becomes the doorway to your freedom. My friends, this is the part nobody talks about enough. Everyone focuses on what silence does to them, how it cracks their ego, how it exposes their regrets. But the real magic, the real beauty, the real power of this journey isn't in their collapse. It's in your transformation. The same quiet that once felt like punishment, the same stillness that once made you feel abandoned, slowly becomes the training ground where you build a version of yourself that even you didn't know you could be. At first, it doesn't feel like growth. It feels like emptiness. It feels like loss. It feels like standing in a room that used to be full of noise and realizing all you can hear now is your own breathing. But breathe long enough in that space and your own breath starts sounding like strength. Imagine, folks, that you've been standing in a crowded marketplace your whole life. Everyone is shouting over each other, trying to get your attention, selling ideas, opinions, validation, love, approval, fear. You've been trying to speak, trying to explain yourself, trying to be understood, but your voice gets lost in the chaos. That marketplace is what your emotional life used to look like with them. Loud, confusing, draining. Then one day, without ceremony, the market closes. The voices fade, the stalls disappear, the crowd goes home. At first, you panic. Where did everyone go? Why is it so quiet? Why does it feel like everything has been taken from you? But slowly, very slowly, something shifts. You realize that for the first time, you can hear your own thoughts clearly. That's what silence gives you, the return of your own voice. In the beginning, you're still tempted to fill the space. You want to reach out, break the quiet, ask for clarity, send that one last message just to understand. You want to go back to the noise because it's familiar, even if it was hurting you. But something inside you, call it intuition, call it wisdom, call it a tired soul, whispers, wait, just wait, stay here a little longer. And you do. You stay. You sit with your own discomfort, you sit with your own fears, you sit with the version of you that feels empty without them, and instead of running from that version, you start listening to it. This is where the real transformation begins. You realize how much of yourself you were giving away just to keep a shaky connection standing. You realize how often you swallowed your needs to keep peace. You realize how many times you ignored your own intuition because you were afraid of losing them. The silence doesn't just show you who they are, it shows you who you've been. And yes, that hurts. But it also frees you. Slowly, you start doing small things for yourself again, little routines that used to bring you joy before they took up so much space in your mind. You go for that walk. You make that coffee the way you like it. You listen to music that isn't tied to memories with them. You clean your space. You rest without guilt. You start taking your energy back from all the places you scattered it, trying to prove your worth. It doesn't look dramatic from the outside, but inside, it's a revolution. Every small act of self-care becomes a quiet vote for yourself. While they are spiraling in questions, you're building answers. While they're trying to numb their awareness, you're sharpening yours. While they're trying to escape their reflection, you're learning to sit with yours. That's the difference. They are breaking under the same silence that is building you. And that, my friends, is the most poetic justice life ever offers. Not revenge, not payback, just you becoming everything you were meant to be once their chaos stopped distracting you. Think of yourself like a muscle that's been overused in the wrong way, strained, tense, always bracing for impact. The silence becomes your recovery room. It doesn't feel exciting, it doesn't feel glamorous, but it's where strength quietly grows. Rest doesn't look powerful, healing doesn't look impressive, but when you come back, you're not coming back as the same version they knew. You're returning as someone with boundaries, someone with clarity, someone who understands their worth without needing external confirmation. You start seeing patterns you couldn't see before. You recognize the games, you recognize the emotional bait. You recognize how much you used to tolerate just because you were afraid of being alone. And instead of judging yourself for it, you finally forgive yourself. You understand that you did the best you could with the emotional tools you had then. But silence is giving you new tools now: discernment, patience, self-control, and, most importantly, self-respect. The beautiful twist in all of this is that your silence is not just absence, it's education. You're teaching yourself that you don't have to respond to everything that pokes at your emotions. You don't have to chase every person who walks away. You don't have to bleed your energy for people who only ever brought you confusion. You begin to see that peace isn't boring, it's rare, and you're learning to protect it like it's your most valuable possession. Because it is. Meanwhile, they can feel the shift, even if they never admit it. They sense that the emotional door they always assumed was open is no longer unlocked. They sense that the version of you who once waited by the phone isn't there anymore. They sense that your silence doesn't sound like begging or punishment. It sounds like maturity. And maturity is the one thing ego cannot mimic. Let me leave you with this, my friends. Silence doesn't just rebuild you, it upgrades you beyond who they ever thought you'd become. Your affirmation for this part of the journey is, I am becoming stronger in the quiet. Write it in the comments. Show yourself you believe it. Show the world around you that your growth may be silent, but it is undeniable. And stay with me, because what comes next will expose how they react when they finally realize the version of you they knew is gone. Number 6. When they start testing the waters, subtle signs, they're crumbling. When ego is scared, it doesn't come back with honesty, it comes back with strategy. My friends, this is the phase that always looks harmless from the outside, but if you look closely, it tells you everything you need to know about where they truly stand. By the time you reach this stage, your silence has done something they never expected. It's unsettled their confidence. The version of them that once walked away so boldly doesn't feel as steady anymore. They're not ready to admit regret. They're not ready to apologize. They're not ready to say, I was wrong. So they do something much more subtle. They start testing the waters, little moves, tiny signals, harmless-looking check-ins that are not really about you. They're about their ego searching for proof that it still has power. Imagine a child who used to walk into a room, flip the lights on, and know exactly what to expect. Familiar, predictable, comfortable. Now imagine one day they walk into that same room and the switch doesn't work. They flick it once, twice, 3 times. Nothing. Suddenly, the room doesn't feel so safe anymore. That's how they feel when your silence stops reacting the way it used to. They send out tiny signals, little switches, to see if they can still light you up the way they once did. A hey out of nowhere, a random emoji, a reaction to your story after weeks of saying nothing, a comment under a post that doesn't really say much but says everything at the same time. On the surface, it looks small, but energetically, it's a probe. Do I still matter? Do I still have access? Can I still pull them back if I want to? They might tell themselves they're just being friendly. They might explain it away as casual. They might even claim they just thought of you randomly. But my friends, nothing is random at this stage. Your silence has created a question mark in their mind, and now every move they make is an attempt to turn that question mark into a reassurance. That's why they don't come back with real depth at first. They don't say, I miss you. They don't say, I messed up. They don't say, can we talk? No, that would require vulnerability, and ego is allergic to vulnerability. So instead, they choose safe, low-risk openings. A late-night "you up?", a memory thrown into your inbox, a song they send without explanation. "This reminded me of you." They're not really giving, they're fishing. And here's where your growth is tested. Old you would have jumped at these crumbs, right? Answered immediately. Over-explained, overshared, taken that tiny signal and turned it into a full emotional conversation in your head. You would have thought, maybe this is my chance to fix things. Maybe they finally understand. Maybe this time will be different. But you're not the old you anymore. Silence has built you differently. Now, instead of reacting from longing, you respond from clarity, or you don't respond at all. You pause, you watch, you read the energy behind the words, not just the words themselves. You ask yourself, is this a real effort, or just a temperature check for their ego? Folks, this is where many people fall back into the same cycle, not because they're weak, but because they're human. There's a part of you that still wants them to understand, still wants that apology, still wants that recognition of your worth. That part of you hears from them and thinks, finally. But your healed self knows something deeper. If their message is about soothing their discomfort, not honoring your value, then nothing has actually changed. A hey is not healing. A meme is not accountability. An emoji is not emotional maturity. And your silence has raised your standards too high for that. You'll notice as you stay grounded that their patterns become clearer. If you reply warmly, they relax. Their ego exhales. They think, okay, I still have them. And what happens? The effort drops again. They retreat back into their comfort, knowing they can come and go. But if you respond neutrally, or not at all, that's when the real crumble starts. They don't get the emotional hit they were hoping for. They don't feel the familiar rush of control. They don't see you rushing back into their orbit. And this confuses them. It bothers them. It pokes at the very belief they built, that you'd always be there. When that belief shatters, their ego takes a direct hit. They might shift tactics. Suddenly, you see them post someone else, knowing you'll see it. They share a quote aimed at you without tagging you. They act extra happy online. They may even pretend they don't notice your silence at all. But remember, my friends, performance always gets louder when inner truth gets weaker. The more they try to prove they're unaffected, the more affected they actually are. That is the quiet, ironic justice of your calm. Your peace exposes their instability. This is not about playing games. You're not holding back to punish them. You're holding back because you finally see the difference between genuine effort and emotional bait. You're not here to be someone's ego bandage. You're not here to be a safe backup plan. You're not here to be the test subject for their emotional experiments. You are here in this phase of your life to protect your peace and honor the person silence has helped you become. The hardest part, honestly, is trusting that you don't need to respond just because they finally noticed the silence they created. Your heart may still care. Your memories may still be tender. But your soul knows what it took to get to this calm. And once you've reached this level of self-respect, going back to old patterns doesn't feel loving. It feels like self-betrayal. You'll feel that difference right away. Where chasing once felt like hope, now it feels heavy. Where over-explaining once felt necessary, now it feels draining. Where engaging with their crumbs once felt exciting, now it just feels small. So when they test the waters, let their behavior speak for itself. Let their effort show their truth. Let their actions reveal whether they're really reaching for you or just reaching for reassurance. And let your response reflect the new standard your silence has created within you. Calm, clear, grounded, not moved by crumbs when you know you deserve a feast. Let me leave you with this, my friends. Their tests don't define you. Your response does. Your affirmation for this part of the journey is, I no longer chase crumbs. Write it in the comments. Show yourself how far you've come. Show the world around you that you recognize testing for what it is, and you're saving your energy for what's real. And stay with me, because what comes next is where your emotional discipline becomes the one thing their ego never learned how to handle. Number 7. Why you no longer fold. The discipline that terrifies their ego. The moment you stop reacting is the moment their power over you disappears. My friends, this is where the journey shifts into something they never expected. This is the chapter they never prepared for, the chapter where you stop folding, the chapter where the old version of you, the one who used to respond instantly, explain endlessly, apologize unnecessarily, finally steps aside. Silence has shaped you, time has sharpened you, distance has disciplined you, and now you don't break the way you used to. You don't bend the way you once did. You don't crumble under the same pressure that used to pull you apart. And that newfound discipline, oh, it terrifies their ego. Think of it like this, folks. Imagine someone who used to have a key to your home. They'd walk in and out whenever they pleased. No knocking, no asking, no respecting boundaries. They got used to that access. They built an identity around being able to enter your emotional space whenever they wanted. But now, after everything, they come back and put that same key into the lock, and it doesn't turn anymore. Not because you jammed it, not because you're being cruel, but because you finally changed the locks. You upgraded the door, you built stronger walls, and suddenly the access they took for granted is gone. That's what emotional discipline does. It locks old doors. It closes the entry points where they used to drain you. It stops them from waltzing back into your peace with the same careless confidence. At first, they don't understand what changed. They think you're just being distant. They assume you're trying to act strong. They assume, like before, that eventually you'll soften, crack, melt, or fold. But you don't, and this confuses them, it shakes them, it disrupts the predictable dynamic their ego depended on. This is the part where you start noticing how much you've grown, not because life got easier, but because you stopped responding from your wounds. You respond from your wisdom now. You're no longer triggered by their mixed signals. You're no longer pulled by their emotional bait. You're no longer swayed by their sudden attention, their late-night messages, their fake vulnerability, or their breadcrumb behavior. You see it for what it is. Not love, not effort, not change, but fear, wearing a familiar mask. And let's be honest, my friends, you didn't reach this point easily. You had days where you wanted to break the silence, nights where you almost folded, moments where your heart begged you to go back to the comfort of what was familiar, even if it was painful. You questioned yourself, you doubted your strength, you feared that choosing yourself meant losing them forever, but you stayed still anyway. You didn't fold, you didn't chase, you didn't surrender to the old cycle, and that, right there, is the discipline that builds unshakable self-respect. People think discipline looks like strict routines, early mornings, cold showers. But emotional discipline, that's a different battlefield. Emotional discipline is saying nothing when everything inside you wants to speak. Emotional discipline is pausing before reacting. Emotional discipline is choosing not to take the bait. Emotional discipline is letting a message sit unopened because your peace matters more than their attention. Emotional discipline is knowing that silence is not weakness, it is strategic strength. And here's the truth they never saw coming. They depended on your reactions. Your reactions fueled their confidence. Your emotional responses validated their importance. Your vulnerability gave them a sense of control. When you take that away, when you stop feeding the ego with your energy, their entire dynamic collapses. They're not just losing your voice, they're losing their ability to influence it. They start to panic internally. Why aren't they responding the same way? Why don't I affect them anymore? Why doesn't this message pull them back in? Ego hates inconsistency, especially when it comes from someone it thought it owned emotionally. And when their old methods no longer work, they realize something they never wanted to face. You've changed. And you haven't just changed temporarily, you've evolved. Your silence isn't punishing them. Your calm isn't cold. Your distance isn't bitterness. It's maturity, it's alignment, it's self-respect rising to the surface. You're not trying to hurt them. You're simply not willing to hurt yourself for them anymore. That shift is quiet, but its impact is enormous. The real reason you no longer fold is because you finally understand that folding didn't bring them closer. It only pushed you further away from yourself. Each time you abandoned your boundaries, you abandoned a piece of your worth. Now, you're reclaiming it, piece by piece, breath by breath, choice by choice. The quiet choices that nobody sees are rebuilding a version of you who no longer depends on their validation to feel whole. And my friends, that internal shift radiates. It changes your energy. It changes the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you move through the world. They feel it, even from a distance. They sense the emotional armor that wasn't there before. They can't explain it, but they know they don't have the same grip on you, and nothing terrifies an ego more than losing the control it once relied on. Let me leave you with this, because it sums up the entire journey of this chapter. Discipline doesn't make you colder. It makes you untouchable. Write this affirmation in the comments, my friends. I don't fold anymore. Show yourself the truth of who you're becoming. Show the world around you that you're stepping into a new level of emotional strength. And stay close. Because what comes next is the moment their ego finally cracks under the weight of everything, silence exposed. Number 8. Their ego breaks. Yours doesn't. The final shift they never saw coming. In the end, the truth doesn't explode. It whispers, and that whisper shatters the ego louder than any scream ever could. My friends, this is the chapter where everything comes full circle. The journey through silence, patience, distance, clarity, it all leads right here. This is the moment they never prepared for, the moment they didn't believe would come, the moment they thought their pride would protect them from. But pride is paper thin when faced with reality, and reality always arrives right on time. The same silence they dismissed, the same quiet they mocked, the same stillness they thought you would break first, becomes the exact force that breaks them, not suddenly, not publicly, but quietly, deeply, and undeniably. At first, they try to outrun the truth. They fill their schedule. They distract themselves. They scroll endlessly. They talk louder. They laugh harder. They tell everyone they're fine. But silence waits patiently. It follows them into the moments they can't disguise. It lingers behind every performance. It sits with them in the car. It joins them in the shower. It stretches across their bed at night. And slowly, piece by piece, breath by breath, their ego begins to crumble. Imagine someone standing in front of a mirror they've avoided for years. Every time they passed by their reflection, they kept the lights dim, just enough to hide what they didn't want to see. But now the lights flick on, bright, unfiltered, unavoidable. That mirror is your silence. That light is your growth. And what they see staring back at them is the truth they've been running from. They didn't lose someone replaceable. They lost someone grounding, someone steady, someone rare, someone who brought peace into their chaos, someone who would have stayed if they had only appreciated you when they had the chance. This realization doesn't hit like a storm. It seeps in like rainwater through a cracked wall, slowly at first, then all at once. They replay everything they ignored. They reconsider the choices they brushed off. They rethink the moments they thought meant nothing. They remember your patience, your softness, your honesty, your loyalty. And then it hits them, the one truth their ego cannot survive. I didn't understand their worth until I lost access to it. My friends, this is where pride collapses under its own weight. They scroll through your profile not to judge you, but to feel close to something they pushed away. They hover over the message box, not knowing what to say, terrified of saying too much, ashamed of saying too little. They think about reaching out, but fear your silence now more than they ever feared losing you before. The dynamic they controlled has reversed completely. Your silence isn't emptiness, it's authority. Your distance isn't avoidance, it's protection. Your boundaries aren't walls. They're proof that you're no longer willing to shrink yourself just to fit into the small space they once offered you. And the most astonishing part, you didn't get here through anger. You didn't get here through revenge. You didn't get here through fighting. You got here through stillness, through choosing yourself, through letting go. The person they expected to see falling apart is the person rising. The version of you they counted on staying small has outgrown the very frame they tried to fit you into. Meanwhile, the version of them who once felt untouchable is finally feeling everything they avoided. The regret, the confusion, the emptiness, the longing, the realization. They don't admit it, they don't say it, they don't post about it. But silence always exposes the truth they try to hide, and deep down they know you were not the one who lost something, they were. This is the moment where you rise, not with noise, not with bitterness, but with clarity. Your heart feels lighter now. Your mind feels stronger. Your boundaries feel real. Your peace feels earned. You no longer look back wishing for what was. You look forward understanding what you deserve. Their ego breaks. Yours doesn't. And that difference is the reward for every tear you wiped alone, every thought you battled, every night you stayed disciplined, every moment you chose silence over self-betrayal. My friends, there comes a day when you wake up and realize something powerful. You don't want them back anymore, not because you hate them, not because you're bitter, but because you've grown beyond the version of yourself who needed their validation. You've become someone they don't have the emotional tools to reach anymore. You've risen, you've healed, you've matured, and now they have to live with the consequence of a lesson they ignored for too long. Let me leave you with this truth. Their ego shattered, not because you punished them, but because you finally honored yourself. And your affirmation for this final chapter is, "My rise is my closure." Write it in the comments. Show yourself you've reached this level. Show the world you are stepping fully into your power. Show the universe you're ready for what's coming next. And before we close this journey, my friends, if this message moved you, taught you, strengthened you, or helped you see your worth more clearly, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who needs this reminder today.